Wow. $13 million, folks. Yeah, that's the number that those little petty tyrants have been collecting from Canadians for daring to practice any semblance of freedom in this country, or not obeying the mandates, orders, or edicts of their rulers or thought leaders. Those very same rulers or thought leaders who themselves have been shown time and time again to not even follow the very rules that they create or promote. Headline on the CBC News, Montreal. Majority of Canada's $13 million in pandemic fines were issued in Quebec, report finds. Marginalized groups tended to bear the brunt of police and bylaw action. This is being reported by Colin Perkle, Canadian Press, June 24th, 2020. In addition to this article, I'll be placing an article pointing out that while the lockdowns were in place and Canadians were basically confined to their homes, the Public Health Agency of Canada paid $300,000 to host a convention while Canadians told to stay at home because of COVID-19. This one was out of Post Media, June 25th, 2020. And like I say, will be in the description of this video as well. So, bunch of hypocrites, in case you didn't already know that. Anyways, back to the article at hand, which is not just suggesting that $13 million worth of fines were handed out across Canada, and I guess the majority of them happened in Quebec, but the fact that it's actually the vulnerable, marginalized groups who tended to bear the brunt of this kind of police or bylaw officer actions, which seems to be quite cruel if you think about it. Authorities in some provinces ramped up often arbitrary law enforcement to help curtail the COVID-19 pandemic rather than rely on a purely public health approach, according to a report released Wednesday. The main problem the report finds is that marginalized and other vulnerable groups tended to bear the brunt of police and bylaw action. That's always the case. That's the thing, folks. I mean, that's especially if you're someone that's on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. Do you not realize that people who are connected or wealthy, they basically function under full anarchy? Or if you're part of the ruling or connected class, these people don't function under rules. It's always the sheeple, it's always the masses, it's always the peons, it's always the serfs, the subjects, the slaves. It's always the people at the bottom who bear the biggest brunt, which is why the people at the bottom have to stop supporting big government. Big government does not have your best interest at heart. And until you come to realize this reality, well, you're going to continue to be mired in this kind of insanity and madness that you seemingly support. Stockholm Syndrome. It's very real and very representative of a large portion of the population in this country. This report proves that we've got an ugly ticketing pandemic, replete with COVID carding and racial profiling in Central and Eastern Canada. Michael Bryant, Executive Director of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, said in a statement, somehow a public health crisis has been twisted into a public order crisis. Once again, this should not be shocking, right? Like, at all. That is, hey, you give people that much power, well, it's pretty foolish or naive or gullible to believe that they're not going to take advantage of using that power whenever the opportunity presents itself. Which is the whole reason why you don't give people in positions of so-called authority that much power to begin with. Provinces across the country issued emergency orders with hefty penalties for violations in March, including closures of public spaces and physical distancing measures. Ticketing soon followed. In one example, cited in a report, a man walking his dog in Ottawa was fined $880 for standing in the wrong place. A bylaw officer in the city also tackled a man walking through the park with his daughter. He ended up with a bruised lip and a fine of more than $2,000. One woman with her baby in Aurora, Ontario, stepped off a park path to let others pass and was ticketed $880, prompting Premier Doug Ford to say the officers could have used a little bit different judgment. Really? Right? A little bit different judgment? Like I say, so disappointed, Doug Ford. He's definitely not his brother. And yeah, I've said that many times in the past too, but yeah, massively disappointed with the Ford government of Ontario. Once again, happy about the fact that the Wynne government was defeated and basically lost party status, but yeah, the Ford government not proven to be a whole lot better, are they? According to the study by the association and the Policing the Pandemic Mapping Project, co-founded at the University of Toronto and the University of Ottawa, police and bylaw officers issued at least 10,000 tickets or charges related to the pandemic between April 1st and June 15th. The value of the fines was more than $13 million. Quebec accounted for 77% of the reported fines, while Ontario saw 18% and Nova Scotia 3%, which means it is Quebec, Ontario, and Nova Scotia who have gone that full-on authoritarian route to tamp down the spread of the coronavirus. But wait a minute. Yeah, Quebec, 77%. But hold her. Yeah, I just did a video. Check that one out. Basically where they're talking about Quebec also has had a huge number of COVID-19 deaths in their long-term care facilities. Well, not just Quebec. It's happening in some of these facilities across Canada and other provinces or jurisdictions as well. But once again, finding people who are walking a dog in a park or crossing a field is doing absolutely nothing to protect the weak or the vulnerable or to flatten the curve, as we're learning now, because outdoor transmissions pale in comparison to those which happen indoors, which is where we were all told to be, right? So even that kind of information has been proven to be detrimental and possibly a cause for further or continued spread of the coronavirus, or at least a contributing factor. The findings, based in part on publicly available information such as news and police reports, were supplemented by reports from more than 100 people who reported COVID-19 related stops, searches, and charges through the association's online tracker, trying to police our way out of the pandemic. Some said there was no basis for their tickets. Others maintained any infraction was trifling. Many of the experiences Canadians shared demonstrate how overzealous technical enforcement of confusing, broad, and vague laws frequently led to fines that were completely disconnected with the goal of protecting public health, states the report called Stay Off the Grass, COVID-19, and Law Enforcement in Canada. While some provinces such as British Columbia successfully resorted to messaging and other public health strategies to encourage compliance with the various measures, others opted for punitive enforcement. Police will be handing out more fines, and, I repeat, the fines can vary from $1,000 to $6,000 per person, Quebec Premier Francois Legault said in April. That's what people who don't respect the rules deserve. How very authoritarian. Anyways, folks, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below. But yeah, like I say, these little petty tyrants, or these people, and like I say, to suggest, what, does this Legault, oh, you're protecting people, are you? Well, apparently your government has failed tremendously at protecting the people who truly need to be protected. But oh yeah, you're real busy out there trying to pump up the strongman rhetoric, right? Which, look at this guy, please, please. I mean, yeah, at least he's not as frail looking as Trudeau, right? So at least his physical stature might be more conducive with the strong man. But please, listen, as a Canadian, I'm here to tell you that the only thing that I find strong from these people is the stench of desperation and a yearning to compensate for some of their own obvious failures. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.